The review into the Reserve Bank has been released and it recommends sweeping changes to the way rates are set. Treasurer Chalmers says the government broadly accepts the 51 recommendations from the report, including the creation of a separate specialist board to set rates. Let's go live to our business reporter, Ed Boyd. Ed, Governor Lowe has also responded to the review. He's supportive of the recommendations and says he would like his term extended.
Governor Lowe's term is set to run out in September this year, and previous governors of the Reserve Bank have had their term extended for a further 3 years. We heard from Treasurer Jim Chalmers this morning saying around June is when he's going to turn his mind to Governor Lowe's tenure at the Reserve Bank. So we'll get an update later in the year from the Treasurer on what happens in regards to Governor Lowe in his position as the head of the RBA. He broadly supports the recommendations that were put through this morning by the review panel. Let's quickly just recap some of the key points that have been recommended today. The biggest of all is the creation of a separate monetary policy board, which will set the cash rate, and that is their sole purpose. The inflation target, they're keeping that. That needs to be between 2% and 3%. The dual objectives of the Reserve Bank is price stability, which is inflation, along with employment, making sure there's enough Australians in work. There'll be a press conference now recommended after every cash rate decision. And the idea is to reduce the amount of cash rate decisions each year from 11 down to 8, which broadly brings the Reserve Bank of Australia in line with other central banks around the world. Now, Governor Lowe, he did sort of take acceptance to one of the things in the review panel in their report today, where they basically implied that the current way the monetary board is set up, where they make their decisions around the cash rate, was a very one-sided affair. And the implication was Governor Lowe and his deputy governor at the RBA would basically make the decisions around monetary policy, and he strongly disagreed with that. These were some of the strongest comments from Governor Lowe today when he gave his press conference just after midday. Take a quick listen.
And the description of how the board process works and the challenge in the boardroom that the panel has doesn't particularly resonate with me. In the boardroom right next door, what I see are 9 people who are deeply engaged in the questions, who bring a great deal of expertise to the issues we're dealing with. They're probing, they challenge me, and sometimes I speak last in the meeting. So the idea that the board members sit there meekly and accept the recommendation that I put to them is very far from the reality that I've lived as the governor.
And Ed, the changes at the Reserve Bank, they've already begun. The Treasurer appointing 2 new members to the board.
Fresh blood already being added to the board. They won't be starting until slightly later in the year. One of them will join in May, the other in August. But 2 new part-time directors being added to the board of the Reserve Bank to help the board make monetary policy decisions. So we've got a graphic we can put up, but one of them is Dr. Iain Ross. He will commence on the 7th of May. He's got a big understanding of labour markets and economics, served as a former president of the Fair Work Commission and judge of the Federal Court and the Supreme Court of Victoria. He's also been an assistant secretary of the ACTU. The other person on the screen is Elana Rubin. She's got over 20 years' experience as a non-executive company director. She's currently the non-executive director of the ASX-listed company Dexus, which is a property group, and the utility Telstra. She's also the chair of the Australian Business Growth Fund and was previously chair of Afterpay and Australian Super. So 2 very experienced people in the business world joining the board of the Reserve Bank in the next couple of months. They're going to bring a lot of experience to the board to help them with their decision-making, particularly around monetary policy and having more of an understanding around labour markets and non-executive directorships and how businesses operate. So 2 positive appointments here from the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers. One of the big themes from Treasurer Chalmers' press conference today was the tenure of Governor Lowe. Will he let him stay on after September? This is what Chalmers had to say earlier.
Well, Governor Lowe's appointment is up in September, and in the ordinary course of events, the government would turn its mind to that appointment closer to the middle of the year, and that's my intention. My focus has been working with the governor, with the opposition and others, and particularly with the review panel, to finalise and now release the recommendations of the RBA review. I have said for some time that the right sequence is to release this with the government's initial views and then to contemplate the governor's appointment somewhere closer to the middle of the year, and that's my intention.
So we'll hear more from Treasurer Jim Chalmers later in the year around the tenure of Governor Lowe. But these recommendations, Kieran, some of them the Reserve Bank will need to implement themselves, others will need to be legislated, and the government currently expects that to begin from the 1st of July 2024. So we'll see some changes from the middle of next year.